Hi, guys. This week we're continuing with informational texts, but we are going to focus on text structure. So, text structure is basically the layout of whatever you're reading. So, if you think about the structure of a building is planned in a certain way, right? There's architects who design buildings so that they, don't fall down, so that they are organized, things like that. That's kind of what text structure is about. The author writes it in a way for the reader to basically understand it a little bit better. So basically, text structure is kind of like the layout. I want you to watch this video about text structure. I will upload this slide on the Seesaw activity. So there are 5 different types of text structures. The first one is description. It's probably the most common text structure you'll see. So basically what the author is doing is that they're giving lots of details about one topic. There might be multiple topics, but it could be just one as well. So some keywords you might see are about, are, has, a, does, for example, characteristics. Again, this is probably the most common. And then that visual there, that's like a graphic organizer that you could use to kind of break down a descriptive text. So let's say you read an article about frogs. In the middle of this circle, you'd write frogs, and then you would give information about frogs that you learned in these smaller circles. So here is an example. It says, coral snakes are distinguished by their red, yellow, white, and black colored banding. Most species are small in size. That's a typo. Most species are small in size. North American species average around 3 feet in length, but specimens of up to 5 feet or slightly larger have been reported. So this is a descriptive text because it's about coral snakes. They're giving examples, giving descriptions of it. So yeah, that one's pretty straightforward. The next one is chronological or sequence. So the author is giving events or just one event in order. So you'll see keywords like first, next, then, last, finally, times, and dates also. That visual that they give, it's kind of like a timeline. Let's go back to the topic of frogs. If they were to give the life cycle of a frog, they could include those in here. And the arrows show the ways that the frog's life kind of progresses. Here is an example also. Building a campfire. Sitting around a campfire is a classic summer camping tradition. Before you can tell scary stories, though, you will need to build your fire. Begin by gathering firewood from around your camp. In addition to wood, you will need other tinder like pine needles, bark, or dead plants to help ignite the fire. Then, dig a small pit for your fire and build a ring of stone around it for maximum safety. Place your wood and tinder into the pit and start the fire using the ignition source as a match. Once ignited, slowly blow on your flame to build heat. When you have a flame, use large pieces of firewood to build a teepee. Next, sit back and relax in front of your roaring campfire. So this is sequence because it's basically like a how-to. It's building a campfire. So they are just giving the things you need to do in order to build a campfire. So if you notice, it says like begin, in addition to, then, once ignited, meaning like this is what you're going to do next. So that shows chronological or sequence text structure. The next one is problem and solution. So the author gives information about a problem, but then also how it can get solved. Some keywords are problem is, issues are, solved by, solution was. So this visual would be like, this is the problem, this is how it's solved. Here is an example, fire ban in effect. During severe droughts, when fire danger is high due to an unusual lack of rain, many places will order a fire ban. A fire ban prohibits anyone from lighting fires, especially campfires, because the danger of them igniting an entire forest or grassland is large. While it may seem pointless to go camping with no fire, there are a few things you can do instead. Be sure everyone in your group has a headlamp so they can see where they are going at night. Bring ready-to-eat meals that only require water and not heat to prepare. Prepare yourself for more mosquitoes than usual and bring plenty of bug spray. Pack layers of clothing so that you don't get too cold without the warmth of the fire. Instead of telling stories by the campfire, enjoy an evening of stargazing. When it gets dark enough, turn off your headlamp, sit silently in the dark, and listen to all the sounds that nature has to offer. Camping without a campfire can still be enjoyable. So the problem here is that when there's not a lot of rain and people are lighting campfires, there's sometimes a fire ban. So basically they're telling people you can't light campfires. So their solution are different ways that you could still, what you could still do when you're camping without a fire. So they tell everyone to have a headlamp, bring meals that are ready to eat because you can't cook them over a fire, bring a lot of bug spray because there's lots of mosquitoes and things like that. So they give the problem and then the solution. The next one is compare and contrast. So the author gives similarities and differences about 2 or more topics. Some keywords you'll see are both alike, unlike, in contrast, similar, different, and in common. So a visual is something we've used lots of times, a Venn diagram. If there was another topic introduced here, then you'd see another circle down here as well. But this is something that you guys have seen quite a lot. Okay, here's an example. It says the Mayans and the Aztecs had a lot in common. Although the Mayan civilizations died out as the Aztec Empire came into power, both tribes still have full-blooded members living today. At their peaks, both tribes were skilled in warfare. In religion, they both believed in the same gods and built temples and pyramids for their gods. Both the Mayans and the Aztecs were very fond of trading with other tribes or nations. Both tribes also kept slaves. As you can see, these tribes had a lot in common. So on the next page, I'm going to show you the comparing and contrasting. So in red is everything that is compared. So those are the things that are similar. They both still have full-blooded members living today. Both the Mayans and Aztecs were skilled in warfare. They believed in the same gods. They built temples. They traded, and they also kept slaves. In the blue is the contrast. So that's basically how they're different. The Mayan civilization died out, and then the Aztec Empire came into power. I'm sure there's many other differences between the Mayans and the Aztecs, but in this article, that is what they give you. All right, the next one is cause and effect. The author tells about an event and then what happens after or what happened because of the event. So some keywords you might see are because, caused, effect, since, as a result of, and due to. And then that visual is a graphic organizer you might see for an informational text that is cause and effect. All right, here is another example. Violent video games I didn't write these guys, the grammar in it is really bad. Violent video games have led to an increase in crime. Over the last decade, video game usage has increased 78%. Similarly, crime in our state has increased by 78%. Many popular video games showcase crimes as part of their venue. Gamers are rewarded for committing crimes on screen. This may lead to them becoming, desensitized to crime in real life. Finally, shoplifting video games has increased dramatically in teenagers. It is obvious if these video games did not exist, there would be nothing to steal. Increased criminal activity is in direct correlation with violent video usage. All right, not the best example, but it is cause and effect. They just have very bad grammar. So the causes are in red. So violent video games, the effect, they have increased crime. So in each one, you can see what happened or like what the causes and then what became, like what problem was created from that. Here again, video game usage, the crime in the state has increased. All right, those are the 5 text structures. Today you're going to be identifying text structures, and then throughout this week you'll be doing different activities using these text structures, not only identifying them, but doing different activities with them, like comparing different articles and things like that.